Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well and not too sleepy after lunch. Today, we'll be telling you about MAMU, which is an application that we've been building over the past 3 or 4 weeks. That it stands for Multi-Agent Multi-User Workspaces. So this is sort of a way to use MCP for multiplayer AI. And in this talk, we'll be talking a little bit about some of the sort of underutilized features in MCP that enable us to do all of this. So yeah, with that, do some personal introductions. So I'm Andrew Culberson. I'm a senior software engineer at TELUS. If you're not familiar, TELUS is Canada's largest telecom. I'm one of the lead developers on the generative AI platforms and some of the external facing products as well, such as, I don't know if you've heard of Fuel-iX, but it's like an agentic platform for enterprise that TELUS runs. And I'm a contributor to several open source projects, such as the Rust MCP SDK, LangChain, and LiteLLM.
Hello, everyone. I am Muneeb Arshad. I'm also one of the software engineers on TELUS's Gen AI platform. My focus has been creating agentic systems that are powered by MCP to automate TELUS flows. Now, let's get into the fun stuff, multiplayer AI. We've all used AI as a personal assistant, a one-on-one, a single player, where you ask a question and it answers you. It's helpful, but it's limited. What if AI was multiplayer, where users and agents, they all work in the shared space? So instead of just you and your assistant, you enter this shared space where your agent can collaborate with other agents. Other agents bring their own expertise, their own knowledge, and their own perspective. So imagine you just joined a team and you want to get access to Jira. And you don't know who to reach out to, or you're just working in a different time zone. So instead of digging into the documentation and messaging random people on Teams and waiting for the reply, you just message your personal assistant, personal multiplayer assistant. Your agent might not have the context to answer the question, but your agent won't stop there. Your agent will reach out to other specialized agents. For example, Andrew's agent might have access to Jira, or even might be able to give me access using its tools. Collaboration becomes a lot faster with multiplayer AI because all the agents, they work in the shared space. Teams, they don't have to work in a linear manner. They all can work in parallel, making workflows much smarter. What's the role of MCP in a multiplayer AI? If I have my AI agent and I want to connect to this shared MCP, it will require some sort of custom configurations. It can get a bit time-consuming and complex when you've got so many agents all connected to the same MCP. But MCP acts as a universal connector for the agents. All the agents that are attached to this MCP, they can request sources and tools using the same common interface. MCP also gives us, all the agents, a common language, a standard communication method. So the MCP decides how the requests are coming in and how the responses are being sent. Networking is quite challenging in multiplayer AI. If all the AI agents were connected as an endpoint, it would get probably very complex implementing so many agents in this MCP. But MCP provides a way to communicate for all the agents. MCP also provides a way to give shared context. So going back to the previous example, where Andrew's agent might have the context to answer me for Jira request, my agent can make use of it. Presenting MAMU. MAMU stands for Multi-Agent Multi-User Workspace. This MAMU has two parts. The first part is the MAMU MCP server, and the second part is the MAMU MCP client. The MAMU MCP server allows all the agents that are connected to this agent collaborate with other agents. For example, my agent can message other agents using sampling. Or my agent can also message Andrew using its agent using elicitation. This MAMU MCP server also has tools, for example, retrieving messages or going back to the conversation history, and just allows all the agents to collaborate better.
The other half of MAMU is the desktop client. So this is sort of a standard LLM chat client that's built to support the entire MCP feature set, with extra goodies for sort of the different like productivity utilities that come with multiplayer AI. So we give you the ability to view all of the chats that have occurred between all the agents in the network, or from your agent to other agents. We also allow you to do things like set a daily context. So sort of like the stand-up questions, what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? Any blockers, challenges? And then have that available to the network. And we also offer RBAC on the exposed tools that your agent is exposing to other agents in the network. We have many more cool things on the way. As we mentioned, this is like a very early prototype that we'll be demoing to you all. But we think there's a lot of cool things with like shared resources, allowing agents to publish like documentation that is available now through this shared sort of workspace on the MCP server. So again, we have like a client, but the idea is the MCP server can be attached to by any agent, not just our agent. So getting into how we make this all possible, this is through two sort of really underutilized features in the MCP spec, and these are sampling. So everyone here is probably familiar with this by now, but this is where the MCP server asks your agent for a response, and elicitation, where the MCP server asks you, the human, for a response. Just to show you how underutilized these things are, this is a screenshot from the Model Context Protocol website that shows the different clients and who's implemented what features. As you can see, sampling is hardly ever implemented, and elicitation almost never, mostly because elicitation is new, but sampling has been there for a long time. And we'd also like to give an honorable mention to routes, which we don't touch on here, but we think is also very useful, mostly for local servers, as it offers like security measures for file systems. So getting more into sampling and use cases for sampling and why we think it's really cool and how we use it. First is tools that follow up. So you could have a tool basically, or an agent use a tool that launches an asynchronous task in the background that later returns to the agent and asks for a response or a follow-up. So it says like, here is the result of your action. Do you want to do anything else? You could have event-based interactions. So the server could have different events that it emits that require an agent to respond to it. You could imagine like warnings from different like systems that you're attached to, or yeah, anything else you can imagine. Borrowing intelligence, which I think is mainly how sampling is used right now, where the tool requires some LLM to perform some operation. And so instead of providing its own inference, it'll ask the client that's connected to it. So we see this with like the Reflect server and some other ones. I think this is like the main way sampling is sort of intended to be used right now. We're sort of exploiting it for MAMU, but we think it's cool. And then the last thing is multiplayer agent interactions. So this is where a tool call can actually launch a sampling request to another agent in the network. And this is what we use in MAMU to actually have multiplayer AI. And then elicitation. So again, this is where the MCP server asks you, the human, for a response. Useful for a number of things. So setup forms. When you connect to the server, instead of some crazy JSON you have to configure, it could give you like, I need these environment variables. Here's links to URLs to get those. You could do human in the loop. So instead of the client needing to implement human in the loop for like approval on tools, you could have the server itself be like, I need the human to sign off on this. You can borrow human intelligence in the same way we mentioned borrowing LLM intelligence, where it needs the human to intervene at some point in the tool, maybe to like select different options. And then finally, agent-to-human interactions, where the agent can execute a tool that actually triggers an elicitation call. So this allows agents to message humans that are behind the agent connected to the network. Cool. So now it's time for a demo. We have sort of an actual like, prototype application that we've built that we're going to be showing you all. So this is the MAMU desktop app. It has a number of features here on the side, which we'll sort of go through one by one, starting with the chat. So this is like, yeah, your standard LLM chat interface. I can just message hi and see the agent come back. Nothing too exciting about that. But we'll also see that this is MCP enabled as well. So I can say like, what tools do you have? And it should come back. I have like the knowledge graph MCP attached, and then we also have the MAMU MCP server attached. So you can see here, we have these MAMU connector tools as well as my knowledge graph. And additionally, it's now spitting out some things, some spoilers for what comes next, the agents that it can see in the workspace. So if we move to the next tab, we have our agents tab, and this is where we can see everyone that is currently connected to the server. So here we have a marketing team for the purposes of this demo, which is actually running all live on Muneeb's laptop currently. And we can go ahead and try out some cool things. So I'll start off with and be like, please ask Muneeb what he's up to. And we'll go and get our agent to actually interact with Muneeb's agent. So here it says, I'll reach out to Muneeb's agent to see what they're up to. We can see that it's now making this sort of tool call to make a sampling request. And then it comes back, and we now have this message from Muneeb's agent. So it says, Muneeb says he's currently working on issue number 1, social media content calendar for their GitHub repo. And he's looking at these different things. So how did it get that information? So part of MAMU is every day when you launch it, it asks you this sort of daily context check-in, which is sort of the stand-up questions. So yeah, what did you accomplish yesterday? What are you working on today? And do you have any blockers or challenges? So from there, you can essentially create these like chunks of context that sort of represent you over time. And you can use to sort of like give your agent more of an idea about like what you do on a day-to-day to answer other requests with like more context about you. So if we move over to something actually really interesting that you can do with this information is our tasks tab, where you can actually create scheduled tasks that run at like a certain point every day. So for example, we have this daily stand-up. So every single day, or I have it running every minute, but the idea is you'd run it every day. It'll go around to every agent on the marketing team and then ask them the stand-up questions and essentially aggregate this report. So here, especially as you add more and more agents in your organization, you can automate a lot of interesting things. So you could get like a newsletter on a specific organization. You could have like a weekly sort of collaboration thing where it goes out to find someone in the network that it thinks you would be, or it would be interesting for you to talk to. There's all sorts of like asynchronous collaboration, like automation things you can do with this. Moving back to this chat with Muneeb, we can actually show some more interesting behavior. So I know already that Muneeb's agent is actually attached to a GitHub MCP server and has access to make issues on a specific GitHub repo. So let's go ahead and propose a feature to Muneeb's agent. So I'll say like, I really want Muneeb's repo to integrate MCP. Can you please inform his agent and get them to make an issue? And what's interesting about this is now you can have sort of a personal AI agent that acts as a gateway to your workspace. So your agent can have like a system prompt defined and some other information defined that sort of tells it how it should make things like GitHub issues or pull requests or any other sort of thing to a way that you would like it, so that if other agents reach out to you, it can sort of like draft different things for you. So yeah, it needs the name. The repo is, this is a test repos. I think we put that in the system prompt, but maybe it's ignoring it. So nature of demoing LLMs. But yeah, this sort of gives you like a cool gateway that you can stick in front of yourself that can sort of like answer questions. You can think of it as sort of like a context cache for yourself. But additionally, it has some like actions it can take. So it can do things like, yeah, create issues in GitHub repos. It could, if you're a project manager, create tasks in, or issues in Jira. So here it actually created the issue, and we can actually go like check this out because that's fun. Oops, not bad. Ooh. And then we'll go ahead and pop that in there. Very cool. So yeah, we have this GitHub issue that was now created through his model. So one of the things that you're probably asking, like, is this secure? And this is something we've been thinking a lot about with multiplayer AI, is like, how do you make this safe? If we move over to our settings tab, where you actually attach MCP servers, you can see here I have this knowledge graph that I mentioned earlier. And if we go ahead and click on settings, then right now we have this sort of primitive RBAC that we want to expand on as you like add more and more agents and as we target like organizations, where you can decide who can execute what tools in what context. So we have an owner access, which is when I am actually using that chat, as I showed you. And then we have a non-owner access, which is when external agents are querying my agent. So what are they allowed to do? At the moment, we treat a single server as sort of a highly privileged group. So everybody gets the same permissions on the right there. But we can see a future where you're sort of provisioning per team or per user. So yeah, doing a more interesting thing here, let's actually ask a question to the entire org. So we'll say, oh, I think in the background, did you message me? Yeah. I heard a beep. Oh yeah, so now showing off sort of the elicitation side of things, Muneeb actually launched this request in the background. Something agents can do in MAMU, which is pretty interesting, is if the agent actually doesn't give enough context to answer the question, it can go ahead and reach out to the user behind the agent. So here, Muneeb, I guess, asked my agent when I'm free for dinner. It couldn't answer, and so it surfaced this request to me. So I can say, like, I'm free around 6 today. Oops, typos. And I can go ahead and click accept and send, and that'll actually be sent back to Muneeb. Conversely, I can actually message him and say, like, please message Muneeb and ask for his birthday. I want to get him a cool gift. And we can go ahead and see that likely our agent will reach out to Muneeb's agent, it won't know, and eventually a request will surface up to him. So something we want to explore as well is sort of saving these little snippets of context that the user is providing through these interactions to sort of add to your agent's context as well. So as you can see, there's like a bunch of different use cases. We've just sort of started dabbling in this, and it's like a very sort of new interface for using LLMs. So we think it's very interesting. We're very curious to hear what all of you have to say about this kind of thing. Yeah, you can see here that it went to Muneeb, came back, and now I know that his birthday is January 10th. So yeah, I'll be getting you something cool. And yeah, we have many more features planned. So a big thing that we want to do is like context management. Something that we haven't really used yet in the MAMU server is MCP's resources. And we think it would be cool if agents could like autonomously create resources that are then shared through the MCP interface. So it could be like documentation relating to specific agents or organizations within the company. Or it could even be with MCP UI, like UI components that are created and shared in this workspace. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff coming. We have a website with a newsletter you can sign up for if you're interested in hearing where this project goes. So I can go ahead and share that now. And yeah, I guess that is pretty much everything.
Yep, that's all.
That is all.
Thanks, everyone.